Joining me now is Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat of Massachusetts. Senator, I think you channeled the way a lot of people have been feeling in response to this. Is why I was very excited to have you on the program tonight. It's 24 hours since the news broke. You were out in front of the steps. You are one of 100 people in this country that have the job as United States Senator. What is your thinking right now about, as you process the last 24 hours, what the meaning of this is and what is next to be done?
Well, let's start with what the meaning of this is. This is the culmination of decades of work by the Republicans. They've gotten what they want, not a little chip away at Roe, but just blasting the whole thing apart. And I think we all need to think about who's going to be most affected by this, who's going to bear the brunt of this. It's not going to be well-to-do women who can afford to get on an airplane and fly to another state, or could even fly to another country to get the abortion services they need. No, who this is going to fall on is this is going to fall on poor women. This is going to fall on black women. This is going to fall on girls who have been molested by someone in their family. This is going to fall on women who have been raped. This is going to fall on women who already are working 2 jobs and in order to try to support their children that they have. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones who will pay the price. Those are the ones who can afford to take off work. Those are the ones who can't tell someone that they're pregnant until this has already gone way too far. Those are the ones who bear the cost of the privileged in the state legislatures and the privileged who sit on the United States Supreme Court and the privileged in the United States Congress who facilitate a rule that falls on them, a rule that says your dignity, your life, your future just doesn't matter.
Roe was decided in 1973, and prior to that, of course, there was a patchwork of laws across the country, and in some states it was illegal to obtain an abortion. You said today that you had seen firsthand what that's like, and I wonder if look, I haven't. I was born after that date. A lot of people watching this probably haven't. It's it's been a fair amount of time. What does that mean when you say you've seen this firsthand?
I grew up in Oklahoma. I grew up at a time when abortion was unlawful. And that means there were women who bled to death from back alley abortions. It means there were women who ended their own lives rather than carry forward in a pregnancy that they could not bear. And that's the world that the Republican extremists are trying to recreate. And make no mistake about this. This is not one on which America is closely divided. This is not one that just in the last few months or even few years we've all come together. For a long time now, it has been the case that the overwhelming majority of Americans, by a margin of more than 2-1, say that they want Roe versus Wade to continue to be the law of the land. And that's true. Red state, blue state, young people, old people, Republicans and Democrats. That's why the plan of the extremists has always been not a frontal assault on Roe through the legislative process, but to go to the Supreme Court and just keep pushing for a more and more and more extremist Supreme Court. And that is why the danger that this Supreme Court now poses is out in full view for everyone. They are willing not to try to couch this in hidden language, not to say a little now and then a little next year and then a little the year after that. They are willing to come in and just blast Roe versus Wade to pieces because they have the power to do it. Well, I got news for them. They can take away a woman's constitutional right, at least for a while, but the United States Congress can come roaring back and pass a law to protect and even do a better job of protecting anyone who needs or wants access to an abortion.
let's talk about that. So there are 50 United States Democrats. There's 50 Democrats in the Senate. There are 50 Republicans. 2 of those Democrats, I think, have said they are opposed to the proposed law that's passed in the House that are in Shrine Row. That's Bob Casey in Pennsylvania and Joe Manchin. So there's 48 votes. There are 2 Republicans who are ostensibly supporters of abortion rights, Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins. Susan Collins said this today: if this leaked draft opinion is the final decision and this reporting is accurate, it would be completely inconsistent with what Gorsuch and Kavanaugh said in their hearings and our meetings in my office. Obviously, we won't know each justice's decision and reasoning until the Supreme Court officially announces its opinion in this case. I guess the question is, like, yes, Congress could do it. And I've heard a lot of people, there's a lot of anger out there, and a lot of people saying, if the Democrats send me a fundraising email about this, I'm going to lose my mind. Like, you have power. I need you to wield it. So what do you say to that?
So I say this. First of all, let's all acknowledge we do have the power to get this done. And so our first step is going to be next week. We're going to vote this in the United States Senate. And 50 votes plus the vice president, that should be enough to do what the people of the United States want us to do by a margin of more than 2-1. However, we're going to face the filibuster head on. And this is going to put it to everybody who tries to protect the filibuster one more time. We're going to run right into that, and we're going to have to address this question. The filibuster is not in the Constitution of the United States. The filibuster was used for decades and decades and decades to keep us from passing an anti-lynching law over 100 years. The filibuster was used to keep us from passing voting rights and the other civil rights laws. The filibuster has just been used this year to prevent us from protecting the vote all across this country. So I think part of this is going to be we're going to have that fight one more time around the filibuster. And look, I look at it this way. If we don't have enough Democrats to get that job done right now, then give us some more Democrats. And I actually want to put it a pitch right now for something everybody who's watching this can do today. Not just, on down the line, but right now today. There's about to be a primary down in Texas for a congressional seat. Henry Cuellar sits in that seat. He is someone who has supported the Texas abortion ban. He's someone who has voted against federal efforts to try to protect Roe versus Wade at the federal level. And he's running against a young woman, Jessica Cisneros, who's terrific and who has a real chance to beat him and who will fight for a woman's right to make her own decisions about her life. So if you're mad when you listen to this, send Jessica Cisneros $10. If you can afford it, send her $25. If you can afford more, send more. But don't talk to me about how frustrated you are because you don't like our particular constellation of Democrats. Help us get some Democrats elected who will actually make a difference. I'm mad. I'm ready to take action, but we need this entire nation to speak out. If the vast majority of people in this country want to see Roe versus Wade protected, then it's going to take all of us working on this. And yeah, it may take a little patience. It may take some frustration, but that's how we get there. And believe me, this is a fight worth having.
Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, thanks so much for your time tonight. I appreciate it.